in case y'all are wondering. I'm Dalton Darnell. I'm sure y'all seen me in a lot of the YouTube videos, and this is 310's first ever live stream. So we're doing this as kind of an experiment. My brother Kyle, which y'all seen him in some of the videos, he was our videographer for a number of years. It teaches video and film at a high school in Alabama. And I came back to visit, and so his live stream team is live streaming this deal for us. So we just figured we'd see if we got any interest for you guys to come along, and we'll kind of go through what we go through at the clinics as far as roping the dummy goes. Kind of the idea behind ranch roping, and I don't really know where anybody's skill set is, because I haven't really talked to you guys, but the idea behind what we do is we want to be able to rope this dummy and then eventually a calf 360 degrees around the dummy, right? We want to be able to catch that cow from anywhere, and that goes for the head and the heels. So basically what I'm going to go through today is I'm going to go through the three different swings we use. I'm going to go through all the basic shots and angles, all the fancy shots and angles for head shots and heel shots. And then I'm going to go through throwing with distance. And I'm going to kind of give you a look into kind of my brain and what I'm looking for when I'm out doctoring in a Brandon trap or whatever. And I'll kind of explain as we go where I would use each shot. We're going to miss probably quite a bit as we go through, throwing all these different shots in the wind. The wind's blowing a little bit, and you know, just being a little nervous first live stream or whatever. So it's not about how many shots you miss, it's about how fast you rebuild. So bear with me on the missing. I'm sure there'll be quite a bit of that. But we'll start out with the basics, right? And that would be your three separate swings. And don't feel like you have to have all three of these swings down perfect in order to doctor cattle, right? You can doctor cattle with just a forehand swing and be working on your hula hand and backhand. So first things first, I like about a 3-coil loop on the ground. You want your spoke here. This is my spoke, right? From my left hand to the Honda, my rope is my spoke. And then my slack here, I like about an arm and a half, where I got my arm bent at a 90, and I can reach this arm all the way out. Reason being is when I go to swing this forehand, I might swing it right here, or I might have to get big with it. I might have to reach way back or tip it way over my shoulder, right? So I just want to be free to move around with my rope, if that makes sense. So the forehand swing is going to be counterclockwise, right? It's going to be swung for a right-handed roper, it'll be counterclockwise, right? And you can do a lot of different things with this swing. You can swing a sidearm, you can tip it over your left shoulder, so, and we'll talk about all these angles in the actual rope, and you can dip it way behind your back like this, or you can drop that tip down in front of you. And I'll talk about why all those things are important as we start going around the dummy. Kind of the basics to that shot is you want to, or that swing, you want to be kicking that top strand of my loop over with your wrist. Right? But in ranch roping, it's not a lot of wrist, right? There's a lot of arm involved too. So you just want to work on staying connected with the tip of your rope, with really all of these swings. But that would be the basics, really a real quick synopsis of the forehand swing. Now we'll go to a hula hand. It's swung clockwise. And what makes this a hula hand is your thumb is going to be rolling down, right? That's going to be important in just a minute. But for a hula hand swing and a hula hand delivery, the thumb will be down, right? And it does figure eight in the back, as you can see, and it opens up in the front. And there's some high points we'll cover on the hula hand as we start throwing those shots. The last swing we're going to use is a backhand. It's swung clockwise as well, except for my thumb is going to be up. So as you can see all that swinging, I threw an 8 in my rope right there. Let's see if it comes back. I'll show you how to fix that in just a minute. So my thumb's going to be out, and my backhand delivery, your thumb will stay out, right? Or up. Your thumb will stay up like this. So those are kind of the three swings. If anybody has any questions about those, please feel free to comment in the chat. As we go along, just comment questions, say what's up, whatever whatever thoughts you have, just throw it in the chat. Kyle's over there, he's going to be kind of feeding me those questions. As we go along, I'll try to hit all of those. So I'm sure most of you guys already have the 3 basic swings down. If you don't, and you need a little help with those, just throw it in the chat and we'll talk about it some more. So from there, we're going to start with, I always start with our basic headshots. And so the idea is you want to be able to catch the calf standing, walking, trotting, or running away from you. So we're going to start with our 3 running loops. That's kind of where I always start the basic headshots, because it's a tool you'll need when you're doctoring yearlings, right? So let's start there. So basically right here, we're going to start with, well, it's a tip over running shot pretty much. So we're going to be off the left-hand hip of the calf. And the key here, the keys to this shot, right, is you don't aim for the head. You aim for that calf's shoulders, okay? And you want the angle of your rope to match the angle of this calf's face to the ground. That's kind of how you get your angle, right? So that's why we're going to tip the rope over our left-hand shoulder, like so. So here we are. See how that matches, the tip of my rope matches the angle of that calf's head? And then when I go to deliver this shot, I'm going to aim for the shoulder. And you want it to hit and figure 8 in front of the calf. And a lot of times you'll pick up one front leg or maybe 2 front legs if you get that figure 8 going. But the whole idea is that if it figure 8s, the calf can't run through it. So we'll throw it again. And that one figure 8'd. So we don't really have any slow motion because it's a live stream, but we have a lot of videos where we put that rope in slow motion, and that's going to be what you're wanting to look for with that shot, if that makes sense. As we move along, another thing that I'm kind of high on is when you're roping the dummy, pull your slack. Pull your slack every time. I know it's kind of annoying because you got to go get your rope off the dummy, but practice in that regard, practicing that muscle memory, that throwing the rope, catching that slack and pulling it is very, very helpful. So especially when you get out there roping something live, it just becomes second nature to you. Another thing is when ranch ropers, guys who dally, pull their slack, you don't pull it like a calf roper like this, right? You're going to catch it, pull your slack so you can go to the horn, thumbs up, right? So this is our running behind shot. This would be like your traditional calf roper shot. And for me personally, this is probably the hardest shot out of all of them when it comes to doctoring yearlings and the basic shots, because you got to put a bunch of dip in the tip of that rope. You see that? And what'll happen is that if you throw that rope flat, you're going to do what we call a top knot, where you top knot the calf. So I'll try to throw it flat. So if I throw it flat like this, now I would have caught horns, but as you all know, when you're doctoring yearlings, they don't always have horns. So the way you get by that, and I don't care if it's a bull or a cow or a yearling or a calf, you match the angle of that calf's head to the ground by putting a bunch of dip in the tip of that rope, and you can reach up there and it should figure 8 on the front, catch your slack, and they won't run through it. That's the difference, right? That's the difference between this running shot and that running shot. Is on this hip, you tip it off to the left because you got to match the calf's head. If that calf drifts in front of you, you swap it from a tip over to dipped out in front of your horse's nose. And then the last one we're going to talk about is over here. Same thing, you're going to swap it to a side arm. As soon as that calf lets you see that right eye, boom. You want the figure 8, right? You're going to want the figure 8 here so the calf doesn't run through it. That's a really easy shot, probably the easiest of the 3 when it comes to running them down. And so what you have to remember is that calf doesn't want you to catch it. So it's going to maybe swap angles the whole time you're running. So if I'm behind it, I start out behind it and I got it tipped in front of me and he kind of drifts over here, I can tip it over my left shoulder and then he comes back to the middle. You can fix your figure eight. He comes back to the middle, you tip it back in, and then he comes to the sidearm, and then that gives you a look and you catch. But the whole idea is you want to be able to swap those angles as the calf's running in front of you, right? So those are my 3 running shots. And I would say when it comes to Dr. Neerland's basic shots and angles, those are probably some of the most used tools there are the running shots. We want to be balanced. We want to be able to catch the calf at any angle, period, end of story. So from there, let's transition to a standing calf in the pasture. If he's just standing there looking at you, what 2 shots am I going to use? What 2 shots am I going to use on the head side if that calf doesn't move? And we're going to start with the tip over. And the tip over will be thrown. I tell you what, I'm going to explain this real quick first because I just don't know where everybody's at. There's 2 things that you have to take into great consideration when you're using a standing shot. The first thing being is that calf's flight zone, okay? And if you imagine a giant circle around this dummy, let's say from here, from this point where I'm at now, that calf doesn't move. But let's say I get 2 steps closer and he kind of drifts away from me, right? I would be in that calf's flight zone. And so you have to read that flight zone in order to figure out if you can get close enough to rope it or not, right? So that's the first thing you would be looking for. The second thing you're looking for, or that you need to know, is where the drive line is. And the drive line is going to be about the shoulder of that calf. If I'm behind that drive line, the calf is going to go forward. If I'm in front of this drive line, the calf is going to turn away from me. So where you deliver your standing shot matters. The reason why it matters is because of that drive line. You can use that drive line and the calf's flight zone to make it do what you want it to do, right? So first standing shot is if I'm approaching this calf standing from a right to left approach. And I'm gonna walk around this calf, and let's say I found the outside of its flight zone and we're this far away, I'm gonna throw what we call a tip over. And it's just a shot, a forehand swing tipped over your left shoulder. I need to match the angle of that calf's head. I can throw this shot from right here. The reason why I'm not gonna throw this shot from right here is because that calf's staring at me and I throw it, right? I throw that shot, let's say instead of this calf turning away from me, because I'm in both eyes, I don't know which way it's gonna go. So if this cow decides to go this way, as you can see, it's gonna jump right through my rope, okay? So what I would do is I would hold that tip over until I got about right here. And the reason why I would do that is I'm gonna tip it over my left shoulder and I'm gonna deliver, right? Now, this calf, I know without a shadow of a doubt, this calf is gonna go this way because I'm in his left eye. So I'm gonna hit that calf. When that rope hits him, he's gonna leave from all the pressure that I have on him. When he does that, he's gonna shoot that way and he should take my slack with him. My horse needs to roll under my rope and I would go to the horn. This is, okay?
Matt Roman's asking, when he throws this loop, it seems that he always gets the neck and very few times the horn. Is the loop too big for Hannah?
Is he wanting to catch horns? Is that what he's saying? Okay, so Matt Roman's asking, he says he catches horns or neck all the time?
He says he always seems to get neck and very few times loop the horn.
Okay, so Matt's asking that he almost always catches the neck, but he never catches just the horns. Matt, for me personally, I am in no way, shape, form, or fashion a team roper, okay? I never want to catch horns. And the reason why is because not all the cattle that I rope have horns. So for me, if I luck up and catch horns, it slops for me. Like I didn't even mean to do that. I'm always trying to catch it by the neck. I would say that it's less about, without seeing you actually throw your shot, I don't know if the loop's too big or not, but for me, it's a lot about placement. If you're trying to catch horns on this calf, if this calf had horns, you would want to throw a flat swing, okay? Like me tipping it over my left shoulder matches the angle of that calf's head, and it wouldn't even touch horns if they were there. So what you would do, in my opinion, which once again, I'm no expert in roping horns, is you would flatten that swing out, and that would have probably caught horns, right? So the idea for me is to catch a neck always. But if you're wanting to rope horns, I would try to flatten your swing out a little bit. Which that would look like, just as an example. Are we on camera too, Kyle? All right, so just as an example, where this is flat. This has dip in it, or tipped over my left shoulder, right? Flat is here, where it's flat above my head like a helicopter. So moving right along to, Matt, if that didn't answer your question, just add to it there in the chat and we'll keep going. So right here, the whole idea, like I said, you match the angle of the calf's head, you dump it on them. You want to dump it on them from a position where you know what they're going to do. That's why I would travel all the way to this spot. I want to be in that left eye. The mirroring shot to this, let's say this same calf is in the pasture, and once again, our goal is versatility, okay? So this same calf is in the pasture, but I'm approaching it from left to right, right? So now I'm walking around, I can hit this calf right here with a Houlihan if I'm pointed this way, right? Like that. And the calf should go that way, right? The same thing being, so let's say I approach right here. Let's say I approach right here and that calf's acting a little skittish and I just keep going. And he's kind of watching me, you know, I'm right on the edge of my range or his flight zone, and he's watching me, and I kind of get in front of him. I would not throw here. Same reason why I didn't throw the other shot right here. I would keep going, and maybe he gets a little more comfortable, and then I would deliver once I'm in this eye, and that calf should go that way, right? Those are deadly. If you watch any of the Get Short series or anything of us doctoring outside, if it's a yearling and we're throwing a standing shot, 10 out of 10 times it's one of those two shots. I very rarely throw anything more fancy than those two shots because they're just automatic for me. They just work really well. So with that being said, let's take the tip over and let's talk about one more angle with it. And that would be the offside and the onside from about right here. Same principles apply, right? Let's say that calf's coming out of a corner. He's gonna kind of come by me. My horse's head will be pointed towards that pond. I match the angle of his head, and there it is. And what you want, this is what you want here. A little better one than that, but that's the figure eight, right? You want that figure eight. Vice versa, you can throw the exact same shot, but you can back your horse in. So if I'm right here standing and that calf comes running by me, I can tip it over my left shoulder here, same shot. You want the figure eight, the whole 9 yards, right? So from there, while this wind ain't blowing real quick, I'm gonna show you this Houlihan angle from this side. And once again, these are the same two shots as we threw standing on moving animals. So these calves would be like walking down a fence, whatever, you know what I mean? They'd be walking in the pasture. These are just different angles or different tools that you can use the same shot. So this would be a left to right Houlihan. I love this shot down a fence. I'm not gonna throw a bunch of coils because of the wind, but I love this shot down a fence. So let's say I'm sitting on a fence and this calf's just meandering down that sucker. Same principles apply. You're gonna, oh, there it was, the first one. Sorry guys. You're gonna match the angle of that calf's head by standing that Houlihan straight up and down, okay? It's just like a sidearm shot. All right, let me try again. Okay, I'll take it right after I get done with this shot. So right here, I'm gonna stand that Houlihan straight up and down right to match the angle of that calf's head. And we almost got it. I'm gonna get a little closer just to, you can kind of see as the loop. Good?
Yeah, better, yeah.
Okay. My aim is just a little too far. I'm looking at that calf's nose instead of his shoulder. So let's look at his shoulder. And that was sloppy, but I still caught. And here's something that we'll talk about. We'll talk about it right after this question. Go ahead with that question, Kyle. Okay. Yeah. Okay, so here's the question. They wanted me to talk about length of spoke. Once again, here's our spoke, right? I personally like, and okay. Is it good? Okay, so this might have a lot to do with the size of loop you use, but I like about a quarter. From my hand to that Honda, I want it to be a quarter of my loop. Now I will, like if I know I'm gonna be throwing like a big shot, like a turnover or something, I'll make that spoke a little longer in the beginning, right? When I first start, it might be like this, but the reason I do that is because the first thing I'm gonna do is feed in here, right? I'm gonna make my loop bigger, where it still ends up being maybe close to a quarter of my loop, if that makes sense. Now this slack here, what I'm talking about here is really honestly personal preference. Whatever is going to allow you the freedom to swap angles, right? So this is slack. I misspoke earlier. This would be slack. This is spoke, right? So this, I want it to be about a quarter of my loop. If I'm gonna throw a big loop shot where I'm gonna feed 2 or 3 coils into it, I might start out with it being 2/3 of my loop or whatever. You know what I mean? It'll just be a little bigger. That way, when I do feed all that rope into that loop, it feels good then, if that makes sense. So, see if that answers their question, Kyle. Okay, so another shot we'll talk about from this side is, and I probably should have talked about it before, but it's a forehand and it will be used doctoring cattle, which would be just your typical, this is like your basic beginner loop, is a sidearm on the head from over here. It's a forehand swing, same angle as the Houlihan, same, you know, positioning. The whole idea is to match the angle of the calf's head, and it needs to figure 8 over here. If it doesn't figure 8 over here, you're gonna be in trouble. And they can slip through that loop pretty easy. So I would be very, very intentional when you throw your rope to try to get it to figure 8 over there so they don't run through it, right? And that's I personally, the only time I use a sidearm for myself is when the calf is under a tree, if that makes sense. If I have to throw under something. Reason being, I prefer the Houlihan hands down because the Houlihan travels from top to bottom, right? Whereas the sidearm travels from bottom to top. And what'll happen with that sidearm is if you really got to reach out there for one, like let's say they kind of catch you in the backswing here, and I really gotta, I'm swinging normal and he kind of gets by me and I really gotta reach out there, what I'll do is I'll stand up in my stirrups and lean forward, and then the tip of my rope just plows into the ground. And it just ruins that shot for me. So on the dummy, it's pretty easy, but in real life application, that's a very low percentage shot for me for whatever reason. I really prefer the Houlihan. So that's what I'm gonna use. Really, 100% of the time, unless 100% of the time, unless they're literally under a tree. So that brings me to my next Houlihan loop. And this is where I want to talk about two things. I want to talk about throwing with distance, and I want to talk about troubleshooting. I tell everybody at every clinic we ever do, the best thing I can teach you is how to troubleshoot a miss. And if you know how to troubleshoot a miss, you know why you miss your shots, your roping will improve tenfold. Right here, so as I go along, I was gonna say it earlier, but the question kind of got me there, thinking something else. As I go along and I miss these shots, and when we get into the fancier shots, I'm sure y'all can hear the wind. It's probably, the roping's gonna get a little more challenging. So we'll have a lot more misses, and I'll just start, diagnosing why I missed the shot. But for this particular shot, this Houlihan is probably the farthest shot I can throw. And I'm gonna show you how I prepare my rope. Huh?
We got a couple questions coming in here whenever you get a chance.
All right, let's go. Go ahead. I'll come back to this. I was just starting it, so.
Okay, I got you, so it's good time. All right, so. Did you hear that?
No.
Okay, I got you. Louder there, Seth.
Could you go over the Houlihan?
I c- You rebuttal it to me.
If you go over the Houlihan, is it just go step by step? Is it just a reverse? It's just a reverse regular shot?
Okay, so the Houlihan swing step by step, right? I'm gonna say the Houlihan for myself is as versatile as a forehand swing. It just gives you, it would be the equivalent to you having a hammer and a screwdriver in your tool bag. It's just two separate shots, right? So step by step, how I'm gonna teach you to swing it like this. The forehand swing is here, right? The Houlihan swing would be the opposite. And what I would want you to do is I want you to lay your rope down on this side of you, and if you're right-handed, and then swing it behind your head and here. And your thumb, if you can see my thumb, is gonna roll down over the top of my head, if you see that.
All right, hold that.
Okay? Kyle's getting a close-up. I'm sure y'all can see that, but it's, I can't see it. This is weird, guys. I ain't gonna lie to you. So that thumb is gonna roll down. It's gonna figure eight in the back and open up in the front, okay? And this shot, are you good? Yeah, okay. So this shot is gonna be thrown more like, there's a lot of finesse that goes into your forehand because there's so many different shots. This Houlihan is thrown a little more like a baseball. You're gonna wanna put a little air under it, just like you would a baseball if you were throwing it to somebody kind of a long ways away. But it's really thrown pretty direct. And you can also throw a Houlihan without swinging. Originally speaking, the Houlihan is used the Houlihan's used to rope horses a bunch. And the reason why, or one of the reasons why, is you can throw it without swinging it. You can just throw it like a ball. It's awesome. So hopefully that answers your question. If it doesn't, as far as going over like the mechanics of the swing and all in great detail, I can make you like a special video where it just talks about those swings. We have one on the 310 EDU site where I go over each swing in detail. But this next shot I'm about to throw is a Houlihan. You good?
We got another question.
Okay.
Take it.
Yeah.
All right, Seth.
Is there a way to get the wax cotton ropes that loose?
That loose. So they're probably asking if you can get the wax cotton as limp as this or as soft as this rope. Stand by. All right. I figured somebody was gonna ask about this thing. That's why I brought it. This is a wax cotton. I've probably roped 500 head with this thing. It's awesome. Yes and no. You can get them very limp if they wanna be, but generally speaking, if you want your wax cotton to be real limp, use it. I mean, abuse the thing. I have roped a pile of calves with this rope. This is my cotton. They're going to be kinkier than a poly. As far as all of these shots I'm throwing right now, this rope is awesome for those. But we good now? Good? Okay. Sorry, I keep hitting it with my rope. That's what it is. So, anyways, so this is my wax cotton. It's broke in as good as it's gonna get. I'll never get another one, hopefully. So, yes and no. Some cottons will never get limp, which for, honestly, a little bit of body like this one's got is perfect for Dr. and yearlings. But if you want something that's really gonna wrap around the calf and be heavy and break in, for fancier shots, the poly is going to be the way to go, which what I'm roping with a 3-strand poly right now. So anyway, to answer your question, if you want your cotton to be limp, like super limp, use it like a lot. Use it a lot. Feed a lot of rope big stuff, just abuse the thing.
Okay, I think we had another question.
Okay.
A hula hand swing versus a backhand swing into a hula hand delivery, question mark.
Yes, okay, so I figured we'd get this. All right, so for me personally, and this is, a lot of this stuff, guys, is tomato, right? Like lots of different people will say that whatever works for them. And my philosophy on that is awesome. Do whatever you want to do. So the difference between a backhand delivery and a hula hand delivery is only one thing, and that's your thumb placement, right? So a backhand delivery is going to look like this. Kyle, if you can kind of zoom into my hand a little bit, right? My thumb is going to stay out all the time, out like this, if that makes sense. You can swing a backhand swing. So what you just watched was a backhand swing, backhand delivery. You're gonna use that swing and delivery on a karate chop. You're gonna use it on a backhand turnover. And that's really it. I don't really use a backhand swing, backhand delivery for anything other than that, I don't think. I might run into something as we go along, but I'm pretty sure those are the only two. The next version of that would be a backhand swing, right? Thumb out, hula hand delivery. Thumb down. Does that make sense? And a lot of guys will say that they can get more power, more distance with a backhand swing, hula hand delivery. Awesome, great, whatever works for you, right? I personally like a hula hand swing, which would be thumb down, right? See my thumb rolling down, figure eight in the back, hula hand delivery, right? Thumb stays down the whole time. That's what I personally like. Although all three of those are options. They're tools that you can use. Sometimes if you want to mess a guy up in pig, you can do a backhand swing, hula hand delivery, which would look like a backhand swing. Oops, sorry. Backhand swing, right? And then when you go to deliver, you're going to roll that thumb down, right? So that would be the difference between those three swings. And as far as application goes, sky's the limit when you're shooting for the stars. Just do whatever works for you best and play with all three. I play with all three all the time, and I'm always tweaking what I do, my deliveries, my angles, where I throw from, how far I throw. All of those things are constantly in motion as far as trying to make them better. So try those three deliveries and swings and see which one works best for you. Is that it on the questions? Okay, very good. All right, so moving right along, we're gonna go to throwing with distance. And this is how I'm going to prepare my rope every single time I go into the pasture to throw it. If I'm gonna throw a running shot, this is what, can you see me from there good? This is what my hand's gonna look like. Okay, so if I take this green rope right here, we can pretend like this green rope is my Makati, okay? So let's pretend like this is my reins, whatever reins you use, I don't care. But they're gonna sit in my hand just like this. Then I'm gonna grab my rope, I'm gonna pull 3 coils out, and I'm gonna put them next to that Makati rein. You see that green? And then I'm gonna have my loop. That's what that's gonna look like if I'm going to run something down. If I'm gonna throw a standing shot, and let's say I'm gonna put 3 coils in my right hand, I'm going to take these 3 coils, and I have my loop right here, my loop, then I have my spoke, and those are gonna be stacked on top of each other like this. I'm gonna put 1 coil, my first coil next to my loop strand, excuse me, my second coil on top of it next to my spoke strand, right? And as you can see, it looks like a square, right? So that's loop, spoke, first coil, second coil. Can you see that pretty good? That third one is gonna go in that crease of the other 2 coils. And what that does is that it makes this immobile. I'm holding it, it's like a daggum, it's like 1 rope. And so it's very comfortable in my hand, and it doesn't move around. So if you just got them wadded up in there, what you don't want, or what you want, is when you let them go, they come out clean. You don't want them to be all wadded up. So that would start there. Then I'm going to take 3 more coils, and I'm going to separate them again like this. So it would be all my coils, Makati, 3 coils in between those 2 fingers. And that's what it's gonna look like every single time I go to throw a long shot. Because I want these to fly, and I want these to fly unencumbered, right? I don't want anything to mess them up. I don't want them to touch anything. I don't want anything to happen, right? So from there, what we're gonna do, and I do this at all the clinics, this is a 50-foot rope, okay? I'm gonna add another coil. I'm gonna show you how I do that. I'm gonna add a 4th and a 5th here. So there's my 3. I'm gonna add that 4th on top of that one, and I'm gonna do the exact same thing with the 5th one. So that's a 5 coil with 3 coils pulled out here. So this is a 50-foot rope, right? The whole idea is not necessarily to catch this shot. The whole idea is to see how far you can actually throw your rope. Because if you don't know how far you can throw your rope, well then, I mean, what are you doing? You know what I'm saying? Like, you need to know your range. So I probably would not throw this shot from this far. But if I can throw this far, why wouldn't I try, right? So that's pretty close, right? That's about, I guess, maybe less than 50, probably 40 feet. I probably had a maybe 12-foot loop, 10-foot loop, and then I'm sitting here with 5 foot of it at the end to try to go to the horn. Now, I didn't catch, but the whole idea is that if you got a 50 or 60 footer, you can throw that sucker a long way. And you can throw it even further if you prepare your rope in advance to throw it. So you can, since you guys will be able to rewatch this video over and over and over again, look really close at how I set that rope up in order to throw that far, right? And for it to all be clean as a whistle. That's the whole point, is you want to be able to throw it and then get to the horn, and it's not just a big pile of just a wreck. You know what I mean? So the last headshot I'm going to talk about as far as the basic shots and angles is my most favorite hula hand. And every time you've seen me throw a really long hula hand on the videos or whatever, it's usually one of 2 things. It's usually from right here, hitting that calf where he's going to go that way, from over there on a standing calf, or it's going to be in an arena or a pen with a calf traveling out in front of me, and you can walk right along with them. And what you're gonna do here is you're gonna throw a real big flat hula hand. Your target is the shoulder as always. And you wanna be on that slack quick, because they will run right through that thing. This shot, guys, is awesome. It is such a great shot, and I have a lot of video of it in the Brandon pen, at 3-man ranch ropings, Dr. Neerlands. It is just so versatile to me, and you can throw it so daggum far. It's just a really good shot. I'll throw it one more time, see how far I can throw it. So once again, it's just this practicing long shots is just really important. As far as getting your range down, it's no different than a golfer or anybody else doing anything. So I prepared my rope, and it kind of wadded up on me a little bit. My spoke kind of got twisted around my loop a little bit, and that will happen when you have 1, a limp rope, and 2, you're not smooth on your delivery. Okay, so I'll show you the difference. Because I was a little further out that time, I decided subconsciously to throw my rope a little harder than I did the first time. And I really didn't need to throw it any harder, I just needed to throw it higher, right? Put the kind of the same force on it from here, and we'll throw it a little smoother and higher. That was a little closer, but way cleaner, if that makes sense. So that's probably, I don't know how many feet that is, a 35, 40 foot throw, right? That's kind of what you want to be practicing for. Is you want to start here, get that flat swing going, and then take a step back and put a coil with it. Throw it with 1 coil, throw it with 2 coils, throw it with 3 coils, and then get to where you can just pound a 3 coil, 4 coil hula hand. And then when you get in the pasture and that calf lets you get this close, which would be probably a 2 coil throw, it's just easy. You're like, man, I can smash a 4 coil hula hand on the dummy. That's just 2 coils, dink, and you just flick it right out there. Questions? Comments?
Got a question.
Okay.
Matt Roman asks, you always put the spoke on top of the loop?
Always. Yes, the spoke is always going to go on top of the loop. Right, your general loop, like this is the spoke, and then this is the loop on the bottom, is going to look just like that. And you don't want to hold your rope hard. You want it to be just there, just kind of floating around in your hand. I do hold it pretty hard when I put the coils with it, because they'll get all jumbled up. So I will be kind of firm with it there. But normally when I'm just like, it's fingertips, right? I'm not like this, white knuckling that sucker. It stays in my fingertips. That becomes vastly important here in just a minute when we talk about fancy shots, okay? Anyway, so I'm just gonna ask and give them a moment real quick. Any questions on the basic headshots? Is there any angles that you wanna see me throw a couple more times? Ask about the running shots, the standing shots. Is there anything you wanna add? Once again, guys, the possibilities are endless with these things, okay? And you're gonna have a strike zone, okay? And this is gonna be kind of where you want the cow to be for you to get it caught, right? Those are my strike zones. Those are the ones that I'm gonna use the most. They're the ones that work for me best. You might have a shot where you can dump it on that sucker from all kinds of crazy spots, which is awesome. Don't quit trying new things, because what I'm telling you is not biblical truth. It's just what works for me, right? I'm just trying to pass that along to you. So is there any questions, Seth, on or can we should keep going? Okay, so from there, let's talk about basic shots for heeling. Okay, we're gonna do a couple of different ones. We're gonna start with the old trap, just an old traditional heel trap. You're gonna see this thrown Dr. Neerlands, cows, bulls, Brandon trap, team rope and pin. This is universal. You need to have a trap. You got a question? No? Okay, you need to have this in your bag of tools. Basically, you want to put your horse's shoulder off the left-hand hip of that calf. You're going to swing a flat swing, right? You're going to deliver. Your bottom strand is going to drag the ground as it makes contact with the right hind leg. You release your loop and split your spoke and hold your rope open, okay? There's a couple of things here that can make or break your day. And we'll start with this. So here's an example of me not dragging my bottom strand on the ground, right? And that still worked out really well. I need to not do that right. I did it too right. So what you don't want is you don't want to deliver too fast and your rope go in like that, right? If you deliver too fast with these polys, it's gonna close your loop up. So the whole idea is you can swing as hard as you want, but then when you go to deliver, you slow down. Make sense? Another thing with these polys is you have to split your spoke. Reason being is you look at my rope, it is in there, but it's laying on the ground, okay? So if I were to throw this, that's what would happen. But if I split my spoke and hold it open, what's that look like? Well, that looks like 2 to the horn, old buddy, to me. So I'll show you another example. If I'm like way over here and I let go of my rope early and try to just throw it in there, that's garbage. That is nothing. That is not a heel trap, right? You're just, if you do catch anything, you just got super lucky. So the idea is it's called a trap. It's intentional. You're going to trap the animal, okay? So here we are. We're gonna deliver, split our spoke, and hold our loop open. The calf's feet go in it. You roll your thumb under, and then pick up, and you got them, okay? Now let's talk about judging distance on a heel trap. And this is basically, this is how we judge our distance. If you are too close, your tip's gonna be over the calf's shoulder. When you go to deliver, see where the tip of my rope is? When you go to deliver, you're gonna hit the front legs. If you're too far away, with your tip above the calf's tail head, way back here, when you go to deliver, it's barely gonna go in there, right? So for you to have the best chance, best catch percentage, you want the tip of that rope right in the middle of that calf's back. Boom. You want it to come all the way through, just like that, right? And I'm holding it up as he goes. I'll get him caught. Does that make sense? This is a must-have. This is a must-have. If you're gonna doctor cattle, this is it, buddy. You need this right here. So from there, we're gonna go to the mirroring shot to that. And that would be the backhand trap. So, which this is another shot I didn't mention earlier with a backhand swing and delivery. It is this same exact shot delivered backhand, right? That wind is whipping me. Same deal, except for you're gonna deliver it backhand. You gauge it the same way. And another version of that is you can approach this calf from in front of its drive line, which is gonna keep it kind of pushed back on the rope. And if he stands there, you can deliver it. You could split that tail head and hang the hip. And now when that calf goes forward, you got him caught, if that makes sense. So now, this is a super cool shot, especially if you're working with people that you work with all the time. It's extremely useful because let's say Abby comes in over there throwing a trap and she misses, and I'm over here on this other side. Well, in order for me, if the only shot I had was a trap, I would have to trot all the way around here to throw that trap. But if she misses and I have a backhand trap, I just go to swinging a backhand, and as the calf comes by, beep, you just throw it in there. You know what I mean? That's kind of the whole idea behind the ranch roping deal. And then as far as heeling with a soft rope, the secret to that is splitting the spoke. You don't drop your spoke on the backhand or the forehand trap, right? You deliver it, split it, and you hold it open, and you do the work for the rope. Whereas like a extra soft nylon's gonna do it for you, right? These polys won't do that, but the polys are more versatile. You can throw more shots with them. So the last version of a trap I'm gonna talk about is one that you would throw standing, and we call it a drive-by. And this is a really good shot to teach like a beginner ranch roper so they have a standing shot. Same principle applies, right? I'm gonna be walking behind this calf. It's gonna be standing still. I'm swinging a flat loop. I want my tip in the middle of that calf's back. As soon as my right stirrup, this stirrup, passes the calf's tail head, I deliver. Disengage my horse and the header will take off, but you split your spoke and hold it open. It's another version of your traditional trap, and the reason why it's applicable is because you can throw it from this side. I don't have to go trot all the way around the header now. I can just kind of, if the calf's gonna stand, I can make sure my distance is good, right stirrup, bink, drop it in there. Right, and the big takeaways here, guys, is knowing why you missed. If you hit a front leg, you know it's because you were too close. If your trap doesn't go under there at all, you know it's because you're too far away. You weren't paying attention, and lots of times, people will get caught up. They're swinging their darn rope, not looking at nothing. They're looking right at that cow's feet. And then they go to throw, and hardly anything goes in because their rope hits the ground way over here, all kind of weird stuff. So you need to focus on where, you know, where your distance is, right? You're aiming right here, not at the ground, right? So you're gonna focus on where the tip is and being smooth, right? Slowing your delivery down. And that counts for all of those shots, all of them. Any questions? Nope. No questions. Okay, very good. So that's gonna move us to the basic hip shots, okay? Now there's only 2 hip shots that I really use in the pasture when I'm Dr. Deerlands. We're gonna start with the sidearm hip shot. So, let's see here. Can we swap to this camera?
You're up.
All right, so right here, this is what I'm gonna call the flank, okay? This right here. You want to be, for me, this is like in a perfect world. I'm gonna be perfectly in line with the flank, 1, 2 steps to the left, right? You're gonna swing a sidearm swing, and you want that rope to hit that cow like a pancake, and you just float it up there, if that makes sense. So the way that you do that, if we swap back to Kyle real quick, you're not gonna throw the rope. We swap to you, kind of get close to my hand if you can. It's gonna be a sidearm, but you don't throw it like this, right? Like that, like this. You don't want your fingers like this. You want to maintain contact with the tip of that rope, get in your position, you're swinging sidearm, and then you're gonna kind of almost drag that tip forward and float it over there, okay? The rope you use will really help you with these shots, with the hip shots. You don't have to throw it hard. You don't have to throw these shots hard. You have to place them in the proper spot, and when you place them in the proper spot, the weight of the rope does it on its own. I can swing as hard as I want, but I need to slow my delivery down, and the rope will do its job, okay? And the lead-weighted polys are the best for that. They just are. They're just great. They're real honest with a big loop. I really like them. But that's your basic hip shot. And the whole idea for anyone who's never seen that, and how does it work, right? So I'll throw another one. So here we go. It goes in. Okay, so we've thrown the shot, the calf's standing, or whatever. How does this work? How does this catch a cow, right? Well, the hip, the reason it's called a hip shot is the hip holds the trap open, okay? Now, when the header pulls the calf, that's what happens. He steps in it, right? When he steps in it, I'm sitting back here waiting on him to step in it, and then I'm gonna pick up my slack, and the header drags him off, and you end up with 2 feet, 1 foot, sometimes nothing. But that's kind of how the hip shot works. And you can use the hip in a multitude of ways to your advantage. I know guys that'll sometimes, if they're like in really deep grass in a meadow or something, they'll sometimes throw a hip shot and just back the calf into it because you literally cannot rope them any other way. Another thing that we do is you throw that hip shot in there, boom. All this rope back here on the ground, we want to get that up. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit the shot, bam. I'm gonna tell my header, I'm gonna be like, hang on just a second. Hang on, hang on, hang on, hang on. I'm gonna get as close as I can, maybe even to right here. And then when he takes off, I have less rope to get off the ground when I pull my slack, right? The last hip shot we're gonna talk about as far as basic shots and angles go is called a karate chop. And the karate chop is a backhand shot that mirrors that hip shot. And it's thrown from over here. So I'm gonna swing a backhand shot. I'm gonna aim for that flank. And that's what I want that to look like. Now, once again, as soon as it hits, I'm gonna go to get my slack up. And I'm gonna let that sucker get as much off the ground as I can, right? So that when he goes forward, he steps in what I need him to step in, okay? And the whole idea here is you want to split the tail head with this thing. This is the tail head. You split that calf's tail head and it does the exact same thing as the other side, right? Keys, let's talk about keys with this. Yeah, got a question? Okay, give me just a second. The keys with this shot, for me, are to sell out. Follow that sucker. Usually what happens is someone does this. I'm gonna try to do it. Somebody does this. They throw it too high, right? And they're standing up in their saddle real tall and like awkward feeling. I use the momentum of my body to follow my loop to the dummy. And I do this on my horse. I'll kind of get my swing going. I'll stand up in my stirrups, and when I go to deliver, I'm going with it. Look at there. That's what you just call a miss. There's no diagnosing that. I just missed the whole darn thing. But that's kind of like following. I'm exaggerating to teach there with that deal. But the whole idea for me is like, if I follow that hand to the ground, right? If I really follow it, then I can kind of guide it as far down as it needs to go. And then the next thing, and if any of you are members of the 310 EDU thing, you've heard me talk about this a bunch of times. And this is this goes for all hip shots, but very importantly on this one is you need to let the coils in your left hand sing, buddy. They got to go. And what it does, if you look at all this rope, that was a terrible shot. This needed to be back here. But if you look at all this rope out here, I'm allowing this rope to do its job because I'm not stopping it. I'll show you what it looks like if I throw a good shot and I don't let any rope go out of this hand. Let's say I'll let one coil go. Try to anyway. So I get here, barely anything under there. Now this looks like a heck of a shot on this dummy, but this dummy is not the size of a cow. You want to imagine that thing's fat, right? If this was a normal cow, this would not be under there. It would look like this, right? Because I didn't let enough rope go. All right, what we got, Kyle? Okay.
And the other one, how big do you like your coil?
Okay. All right. So preventing a belly catch with a hip shot. This is difficult and sometimes unavoidable, but not always. Most of the time, if you throw a hip shot and it's a good shot, okay? So let's say we throw a good hip shot. And there we are. What can happen is if your header allows this calf to back up, you're gonna end up with it belly roped. So really it's the responsibility of the header to not let that happen. And the way that he needs to do that is that you don't give any ground. When this hits, your guy gets short, that cow needs to go somewhere else, okay? And you can help with that. Like when you're riding in, if it looks like the calf's gonna back up, push in there. Put some pressure on the calf. Sometimes the calf will just go to wallering and acting a fool, and you'll end up with it belly roped. But I would say literally 9 out of 10 times when that does happen, the reason it happens is because the header let the calf back up too much. So the header needs to maintain control of the calf at all times, even when you get your hip shot in there, because if he backs up right here and you end up with him belly roped, one thing you can be looking for is don't pull your slack. If that does happen, just try to like fish it off of there. But as all of you know, because all of you rope, sometimes stuff just happens and it really stinks. But those are the things as a header I'm looking for, because if you know that can happen, you have to prevent it, right? Coil size, I like them small, tight, compact. As you can see here, about like that. I don't want them hanging on nothing. Like when I got my McCarty and all my stuff, I don't want them hitting nothing. I want them to be nice and compact. I also, I'll show you this, and this has a huge thing to do with it. I also, when I put coils with my loop, okay, so look at this. All right, so if I'm swinging a Houlihan, look how much that thing's moving around. Well, it ain't, right? It's just there. Now look at this. It's like having a whole nother loop in my hand, if you see that. It's just very cumbersome and awkward to me, right? So that's why I like to keep them tight and neaty like that. Tight and neat, excuse me. That way it's compact and it feels good. So I like them pretty small. You know, whatever, it's really personal preference, but those are the reasons why my personal preference is small. See if that answered the belly rope question. Who asked it?
John Martin.
John, let me know if that's what you're talking about. In my experience, that's why I end up in that spot. Is the header lets the calf back up. Sometimes it's not the header's fault always. The calf just goes to thrashing and acting crazy. But usually if the header pulls off real good, you know, just really feeds rope and gets his horse going and snatches that calf's feet out of the ground, then we don't end up with that problem. But you know how soggy they can be sometimes, and especially if they're big. If they're big, you might want to add some preventatives in that deal. Like if you got a third man with you, have him ride up there and like shoo them off of your rope, you know, as the header goes to pull, to kind of help that guy's horse get that sucker unanchored. You know what I mean? Okay, cool. So those are the hip shots that I would use doctoring yearlings. Now we're gonna go to the head shots that I would use at a Brandon or a 3-man roping. So if you're into 3-man ranch roping, if you have a Brandon you go to where they like for y'all, listen to that wind. This is gonna be brutal. We're gonna have lots of missing. Anyways, if you just have Brandons that you go to where you wanna throw big fancy loops, these are the shots I'm gonna use for head shots in those scenarios. So we're gonna go over a forehand turnover from 2 places, 2 angles. We're gonna go over 2 backhand turnovers from different angles. We're gonna go over a scoop loop. We're gonna go over a Marciel, which is a super cool shot at a Brandon. I've never thrown it in a ranch roping because it's usually not on the score sheet. But boy, there is some slick things you can do with that at a Brandon. So let's see, Marciel scoop, both turnovers. I don't ever really throw a Dell as a headshot, mostly because I'm just more comfortable with the other 2, the forehand turnover and the backhand turnover, and I can be more precise with those 2 shots. The Del Viento for me is a great hip shot, but as far as head shots go, it's really wide and open, and you have a hard time getting it to figure out, close up, or I just don't do well with it with a headshot, so I don't use it for one. yeah, if you have a great angle for a Dell, send it to me. I'd love to see it. I've just never really done that very much. So both the turnovers, a scoop, the Marciel. I'm trying to think. We'll start there if I think of another one. The Houlihan is can be considered, it's not really a fancy shot, but at the Ranch Opens I use it a lot because it's worth more points than a forehand, and it does really good. But as far as fancy shots go, I leave that in the basic shots and category angle. So anyways, we good? All right, here we go. So we're gonna start, since the wind kind of died down, we'll start on this side quickly. This is probably my favorite turnover angle. What I'm wanting here is I want the calf to roll out in front of me from left to right, okay? And I'm gonna throw this turnover, very importantly, I'm gonna throw it high. I'm gonna throw it high and past my calf, okay? So the angles to the turnover are here. So I'm gonna kick that tip way behind my back, split that spoke, and miss just terribly. Hang on, let me try again. It's all about rebuilding fast. Here we go. So let's try again. I threw it a little too far forward that time, so we're gonna dial it back. Perfect. So the figure eight thing here doesn't necessarily apply because I have my slack. So if any of you guys follow me on TikTok or Instagram or YouTube Shorts, I had that video the other day I put up of how I split my spoke on a forehand turnover, where there's a close-up of it. We don't really have that today, but the idea, go watch that video and it'll tell you how I'm splitting my spoke. But I like on the turnover to keep my spoke in order to have control, right? As soon as I know it's gonna hit, we're pulling slack, okay? So that's my first forehand turnover shot that I like from this side. It's, for me, far easier than the other turnover angle I'm gonna show you. I can see it better, it sets up more for me. So if you're walking into a herd, let's say the fence is right here, and that calf just meanders out in front of you, you can just roll it right over his head. Keep me up on the questions right here, Seth, because these shots will probably have more questions.
I think we got a question before you get started.
Okay.
What was that?
Matt Roman asks, will you throw a Johnny Blocker?
A Johnny Blocker. Okay. So for me, the Johnny Blocker and the forehand turnover are, I've never heard a real good explanation for the difference between the two. I don't know if Johnny Blocker was just the guy's name that invented the forehand turnover. I know it's not because of the, anyway, so I just use the term forehand turnover because it applies to everything. Me and my dad have kind of talked about what we think maybe a Johnny Blocker might be, which would, we kind of use it as more of like a quicker little turnover from back here, like that. Which that might be the difference, right? Whereas this turnover over here is just a lot bigger and farther and higher than that other one. But for most of the stuff that I've seen, no one's given me just some ridiculous answer that you know, or a reason why you would call it one or the other than it's kind of the same shot, right? But you know, there's a million different ways to use the turnover, and that's one of them, right? And so we've kind of, the little blocker shot we throw would be more like that. Less of like a big, open, floating loop, and more of just like a really fast turnover, right? That's kind of where we've settled on. And granted, I might be dead wrong about that. There might be a great difference between, all the research I've done on it, like looking the names up, I just haven't really come up with anything other than kind of what we've decided to call one or the other. So like if a calf's running by really fast, I might whip that thing out there, and that's kind of a different shot than the big forehand turnover I throw. Okay. Okay. Yes. So there's no wrist roll really at all. The way, the key, I'm going to say the key to the turnover for me is angle. For me, it's the angle of your loop and the way you deliver it, right? So what you're wanting here, y'all pretty tight on me? Pretty close? Okay, so what you're wanting here is you want that turnover kicked over your left shoulder and behind your back, right? Like this, right? Way behind my head, almost uncomfortable. Like you want it cranked back there, okay? And the key here to make it that big, pretty, just big, pretty turnover is you want to maintain contact with your loop, right? And I don't know, y'all probably may or may have not. I know Zach Kalps heard the song, which I don't know if he's in the chat or not. What's up, Zach? Look at the flick of the wrist, right? That's kind of the whole idea. You got another question? You good? So here we go. We got it way behind our head, and I'm gonna roll my fingers out where I'm swinging. I know my rope's figure eighting, but where I'm swinging with those two fingers, and then I'm going to coil my arm up, right? And it's gonna look just like that, right? And it's gonna kind of load up. I'm swinging, kicked over behind my back, over my left shoulder. I'm gonna kind of load the tip of that rope up where it's real heavy feeling, and then I'm just gonna drag it into the sky and let it go. And the way you get the turnover is that angle, and then that maintaining contact with your loop. And then additionally, how you get distance is how hard you swing, right? And it doesn't even have to be fast. It can just be, right, like, so here we are. I'm swinging pretty slow, but I'm gonna add some power. That momentum, if I slow it down, that momentum is what carries your rope away from you, right? Did that answer the question, Seth?
Yep. And Zach says, feeling good, my friend.
Oh yeah. Zach, for those of you who do not know, is the farrier on, he's the guy who did our instructional videos on shoeing. Great guy, great farrier. His wife made some awesome instructional videos. If you want to learn how to shoe your horse, 310ranchlife.com, go to the education tab, sign up there. You can see all of Zach's videos, starting from tools of the trade all the way to trimming and shoeing your horse. So check that out. Any questions? Are we good? Okay, so, okay. All right, guys. So basically what we have here with that turnover is the sky's the limit when you're shooting for the stars, all right? If you can do all kind of craziness with that thing. I'm gonna show you my two most used shots, but there's a lot of variations of that you'll see throughout our videos. So I'm gonna kind of stay on this side of the dummy, and we're gonna continue from over here. So the next fancy shot I'm gonna throw from over here is called a Marcial. And a Marcial is a really interesting shot. I really don't use it at the 3-mans. I use it in the Brandon pen quite a bit just because it's really freaking fun to throw and it looks like a magic trick. So basically what you do with a Marcial is you catch everything on the but. We good? Sorry guys, I think Kyle went to get batteries or something. Good? So everything, you're gonna catch everything on the calf except for its head. And then when the calf squirts forward, you're gonna have its head. It's unbelievable. So here we go. I'm gonna try to, hopefully I hit it first shot and then I won't have to throw it again and we'll be good. So right here, kind of perfect. So if this kicker wasn't here, it'd be golden. Here's the idea. We still on you? Okay, here's the idea. So this would blow through, right? And I'm gonna put it in front of that kicker. So you basically throw a big hip shot on the calf, So now what happens is that little calf at a Brandon is going to squirt forward, okay? Watch the kicker. So when he squirts forward through the front of that rope, just like, y'all still got audio? Just like the hip shot, he's gonna squirt forward, you pick up, and you're gonna end up with his neck. It's hilarious. It's really a really cool shot. I've heard of guys using it in the snow too, but I've never doctored much anything in the snow. And then when I'm doctoring yearlings, I don't use something like that usually, but we at a Brandon for fun, that's a really cool shot. But that's the Marciel. You basically throw a big hip shot on, am I good right here? Yeah. A big hip shot on the calf's body, and then when it shoots forward, you have it. And there's video on my TikTok of me roping steer in our arena with it, because a guy asked to see it. So if you want to see a real calf roped that way, just jump over there. So that's the Marciel. Those are really the two fancy shots I'm gonna throw from this side. If I wanted to throw a Dale, you could throw it from this side. Once again, that's why I don't throw it much. Because I mean, like, I can obviously pull my slack, but that's just quite a bit of opportunity, especially at like a Brandon or something, for a little bitty calf to get through your rope right there. Whereas you can throw this turnover and you're good to go, right? It's not as, it doesn't stay as open when it hits them. So, moving right along, we're gonna move right into the forehand turnover from this side. And this shot, for whatever reason, is super hard to me. The whole idea of the turnover is if I was a cow and this was my calf, okay? I could throw my turnover shot over this cow and still catch that calf. And before you say, man, you're crazy, that ain't a thing. I have seen it done multiple times. It is wicked. But that's why the turnover shot is useful, right? So if that cow's right there, I'm sitting on my horse, I can throw this shot over a cow and catch that calf. Sick. I mean, it is, when you see somebody do it at a Brandon or a roping or whatever, you're just like, well, I need to go home and practice some more. The whole idea here, and it's very difficult for me in real life to throw this shot, I almost always do this. Uh-oh. I almost always throw too far past the calf like that. I mean, literally 6 out of 10 times, that's exactly what I do. And I think the reason why that happens to me is because my loop is rotating too fast. I think I need to slow it down and be a little more intentional about where it lands, and that would help me out. But that is another angle that I use because you can throw it over another cow, right? It's very, very helpful. Okay, let's see here. So the next one we'll go to, it's fantastic. This wind is beautiful. It's a beautiful day. Next thing we're gonna go to is a scoop loop. And a scoop loop would be on the lower tier of the fancier shots, so to speak. Not really. It's a little easier than the turnovers. It's very, it can look, somebody who's really good at it makes it look like a super easy shot, but it's not. It's pretty difficult. And practicing it on the ground can be even more challenging because of the way you need to get your tip. But basically the idea is you swing a forearm swing, sidearm, real steep sidearm, and I'm gonna drag that tip towards my right hand, my right foot, my right stirrup, right? And what you wanna do is you wanna pitch the tip of that rope out in front, right? Out in front, and you're gonna catch the calf with the back side of your loop. So it's gonna look like this, right? So this really would have been a good shot if I wouldn't have hit this kicker. Not the end of the world, but this is what you want, right? It's figure 8. And this is just the mirroring shot to the sidearm. But that's kind of what you want. I like the calf's head to be like almost a little bit past my horse's nose, but I'm gonna want my horse kind of pointed in the direction the calf's going, like this, if he was between my legs, and then it's gonna kick out like that, right? It's a super cool shot. Especially you can throw it on something just running Mach 9 down the fence. So the last fancy shot we're going to talk about on the head side, we're going to talk about 2 backhand turnovers. And I'm going to prepare myself for the questions here, because this, for whatever reason, has been very popular on social media, me throwing this shot. It's as useful as any of the other ones. Reason being is you can throw it off the off side of your horse really well, in a branded trap or at a roping, for the head or the heels. It's just a very fancy looking shot. It's really pretty cool. So we'll start with the offside view, okay? So the offside view is going to be over here. It's going to be a backhand swing, and we're going to lead the calf quite a bit. And what you want is you want to lead the calf enough to allow your rope to turn over. Very important. And so the way, I'm going to go ahead and just dive right into how this is thrown, because I'm sure somebody's like, what the heck is that? So it's a backhand swing. The angle is going to be kind of straight up and down. It's really the exact same as the karate chop. The karate chop angle. As you're swinging, what you want is you want to load the tip of that rope up, and you're almost going to uncoil your hand, your shoulder, your elbow, your wrist, and your fingers are all going to be, think of it like a coiled snake coming out, and it's all connected to the tip of that rope. So as you come out, it's going to all come in one deal, in one fluid motion. This is key here. Being smooth with this shot is very important. You're going to uncoil that arm, elbow, wrist, and fingers all at the same time, and then you're going to split your spoke like this. Hang on, it's unacceptable. Like this. You're going to have your loop here, and this is your spoke. It's already going to be in the back, in the palm of your hand. So as you let it go, you just let the loop go, and you'll have this in your hand. And that stopping of the spoke is what's going to give it that really hard whipping action. And you want to try to throw this thing higher than you normally would, like a karate chop, as high as you can. So here we are swinging karate chop. I'm going to coil it up, send it, stop it, right? And the angle and the way you deliver connected to the tip of your rope is what's going to give you that turnover action on that deal. So that would be the offside turnover head, backhand turnover head shot, and this would be the onside. Real easy shot. You just back into position. They can come down you on a fence. They can come down you between you and another guy. Same deal, right? You know, throw it out there. As it gets in front of your target, you can stop it, and it'll flip right over. Both, I know lots of you have probably seen the Del Viento video on YouTube. If you've seen that video and you like that video and you haven't seen the 310 EDU stuff, I have a super in-depth instructional on how to throw the backhand turnover and the forehand turnover on there that's just like the Del Viento, okay? So that's pretty much, as far as fancy shots go, y'all comment below if I'm missing one. On the head, that's pretty much all I'm gonna throw for headshots at a Brandon or whatever. I'm not gonna do anything, I don't throw any ocean waves or any of that craziness. It is still work, and the whole idea is to be efficient, and I'm not efficient with those shots. So I want to have the highest catch percentage I can and still make a hand and be helpful. So those are my highest percentage shots as far as fancy head shots go. I do not throw a scoop very often. but I know how to throw it because it's a shot and it's fun to throw. So I'm gonna usually alternate to a backhand turnover or a forehand turnover. If it's going down a fence, I'm gonna throw a hula hand. So with that being said, I'll pause for a moment for any questions on those. If there's any shots you want to see me throw from a different spot, just comment now and let me know. If not, I'll keep going and we'll go right into heel shots.
Right now we got no questions.
Sweet. Okay, here we go. Heel shots. All right, all of these are going to be hip shots. I'll tell you what we'll do is I'll start from, okay, we'll start from above the drive line. We'll start over here. So I'm gonna start right here. We'll start with the backhand turnover hip shot. This shot is thrown just like the head shot, the onside head shot. The key difference is you want to throw this as high as you can, especially on a big animal. Your loop size is important for all of these hip shots. The bigger the animal is, the bigger your loop the bigger loop you want to have. Obviously that can get disproportioned and get ridiculous, but the whole idea is that you adjust your loop accordingly. If it's a little bitty calf, you don't need a giant loop. If it's a giant calf, you need a giant loop. So we'll start with the forehand turnover. I'm gonna try to throw it high and past, right? Okay, so I did not throw this shot far enough this way. Now the wind is blowing from this direction, which is annoying, but for all extensive purposes, this would have gone in if I'd have thrown it a little bit further past the calf's butt. But we'll try again. I hit the front legs, and that's why it didn't go in, and that's why I didn't throw it far enough. Let's try again. Perfect. Okay, here's the idea. You want it to come in just like that. It can come in from the offside to onside, and sometimes in the perfect situation you'll ocho them, or you'll throw it where it comes in from both sides, but that's pretty textbook. I'm almost always going to attempt to throw that shot from above the drive line, so I'm going to be up here. Reason being is if I have a third man, he's going to be over there blocking that calf, and I can do two things at once. I can deliver my shot and I can block the calf back on the rope. Whereas if I get past the calf's shoulder, right now I'm behind the drive line, I give this calf a hole to go that way. You can also throw this shot from the offside, right? So this time, as you can see, it went in on the onside. So it went in under that way, but still, you're gonna get the same amount of points at a ranch roping for this because you caught a backhand turnover, but you can throw it from the on or the offside. Very, very, very versatile shot. The biggest reason why I love the backhand and the forehand turnover so much is because you can throw it from above the drive line. Because I can throw it from right here and I don't have to get back here, okay? So that being said, let's move right on to from over here. Let's see. We'll do a offside scoop loop hip shot, and then because I can throw a forehand and a backhand turnover, I almost never throw these shots on cattle. Reason being, the forehand and the backhand turnover are worth more points in a roping. But I do practice them in case I get in a situation where I need them. So here's the shot. It's a normal scoop loop. It's a normal scoop loop. You throw it just like the head shot, except for when the rope hits the calf, you're gonna pop your spoke and it shoots that tip back under the calf right here to set that trap from the offside. The offside of the animal is the other side from you. So it comes in from the opposite side that you're on. The keys with this shot are the same with the over the hip, and I'll kind of show you like this. As that loop's flying, right, I let it go and it's flying like this. I want this Honda to hit the flank, and what that does is when I pop my spoke, it doesn't close my rope up. If the Honda's too high and I pop my spoke, it just closes the rope up. If the Honda hits the hip, the flank right here, and I pop that spoke, it kind of snatches the whole rope back like this instead of just closing it up, and it shoots that tip through. The same thing happens on an over the hip shot from the other side, and I'll show you over there. That's going to be really the two fanciest shots from this side of the calf. You can also throw, I can try a Contradel, but I never throw this, really, unless I'm just playing around. So my aim was a little off there. I'll try it again. And this is like we were talking about earlier, like borderline Mexican trick roping, which you don't get scored much on. So that was good. I didn't let it fall far enough. We'll try one more time and then we'll move on. Let it go one more time. Let it fall. See, I don't mess with that much unless I'm at a roping and I'm literally just getting my butt whipped, like the last roping I went to. It was just, I threw a turnover, it went under, the calf didn't step in it, and it just turned into a, you know, kind of a, everybody was running around, and so as a joke, I just kind of trotted up there and threw one for fun. And I almost caught it, really, but you're gonna be way better off throwing something more. You're gonna be way better off throwing something that you can be consistent with. Next shot we'll throw is a Kulo, which is a straight behind hip shot. Oh, good heavens. The wind reached up there and said, nope. So there again, I don't throw this shot a lot, but it is useful. So here we go. Again, that's just terrible. Terrible. It's hard to throw a Kulo in the wind because you want, the way that I throw mine anyway, is I kind of throw it from top down. I kind of float it out there and let it fall and hit the calf, and when you have wind, it kind of stops it. You can kind of kick a little bit more sidearm into it. Good heavens. Kick a little more sidearm into it to where it'll kind of come in from one side, but a real life traditional Kulo shouldn't look like a hip shot like that, right? It should come from top down, but I got my crosswind coming here and it is killing me. But the whole idea, and I just keep plugging away at it. I caught one when I was practicing before. I was like, well, so, kinda. So the whole idea here is that you would want these strands to blow through there. Right, and if you have a limp rope, which this is a limp rope, and you can throw it high enough and flat enough, you can kind of get it kicked back behind your head and float it up there, and it'll hit and splat and cross the animal up, and you'll get them caught that way. Go ahead. Okay, perfect. That is a fantastic question. I would say it's one of two things. If you are splitting your if you're splitting your spoke, John, then in keeping your spoke, you're probably stopping it to a little sooner than you want to, or there's too much friction in your hand. That's one thing that can cause that. So if you're here and you try to throw it out there and I stop it too soon, it's gonna close up, right? If I don't let that spoke free flow through my hand. Second option, if you're not splitting your spoke and you're gonna let your turnover go, I'll show y'all what that looks like. And you just let it go, which a lot of guys do this, and that's awesome. I just do it different. So I'm gonna let it go here, right? This is your problem. It would be your left hand that's going to stop your rope, right? Another thing that potentially could be hurting you is if you're losing contact with the tip of your loop, right? And so this would go back to smoothness, in my opinion. And what that, I don't really even know how to show that to you. But what'll happen sometimes is like you're swinging and you might pause too much and lose contact and try to, I can't even really show it other than, I'll just say this, really pay attention to how smooth your swing is and how smooth your delivery is. It's more about the delivery than the swing. And one thing I tell myself constantly when I'm throwing all of these shots is be smooth, be smooth, be smooth, be smooth. Because any kind of hiccup in your spoke, any kind of cross up in your coils, any time that you don't deliver with just a fluidity, it's gonna jack it up. So with that being said, the first thing, if you split your spoke, these two hands are doing something that's messing you up. One thing that I did in the Dale videos, I put electrical tape on my rope at 1 foot intervals, and I filmed myself in slow motion throwing the shot over and over and over and over to get an idea how much spoke was running through my hand. Do that with your rope. Put electrical tape on it and set your phone up to video and see if the rope is catching your hand and it's stopping your loop. Also, try that trick of pulling out these 3 coils in your other hand and see if that doesn't help some fluidity from your left to your right hand when you're allowing the spoke to run. Those are the 2 things that I would, okay? Those are the 2 things that I would.
All right, so Cody asks, in all the turnover shots, the turnover is a rotational turn of the loop, not a flipping of the loop, correct?
No. Well, okay. So what he asked was, is a turnover a rotational thing or the flipping of a loop? The backhand, forehand turnover, they turn over. Like they start here and they flip over, literally, like you would flip a pancake. The Del Viento, which we'll talk about here shortly, is rotational. It does not turn over. You catch the rope, like for instance, if I throw a normal traditional shot, okay, I'm going to catch the cow with this side of my rope. His head's gonna go in it like this. If I throw a turnover, his head's gonna go in it like this. It's gonna go all the way around, right? So as it flips over, it's literally, instead of catching it from this side, it's gonna do this. It's gonna catch from that side, if that makes sense. So it's not really rotational. It does flip over, but that's just the forehand and backhand turnover. The Dale we're gonna talk about here in a bit is rotational. You'll start a rotation, you'll catch the Honda and you'll pull it back. And that was another thing I was gonna get to with you, John. That's another thing that you can really pay attention to on your turnovers, especially if you video them in slow motion, is how much control you can have without it closing up. Like, cause you can get that thing started and as it turns over, you'll kind of catch it with your spoke and you can kind of guide it around a little. But if you do that too much, it'll close up. So there again, that's gonna be have a lot to do with spoke control. Very important there. Being able to let the spoke slide, when to stop it, when to rotate it. And I would say, John, my biggest asset for myself is being slow motion video, because you can see stuff in that slow-mo that you would never be able to see. Even in, like, as y'all are watching this live stream, there's gonna be stuff here that you pick up that's gonna be great, but you can't even compare this to like the Del Viento video where I'm literally filming just my fingers in slow motion. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you can get a lot out of that stuff. You good, Seth? All right, sweet. So, sorry about the Kulo debacle. I'll throw it another day when the wind's not blowing. So that's a backhand turnover. That's a scoop loop offside. Now we're gonna move to this side and we'll start with the forehand turnover hip shot. The reason this is my favorite shot for a 3-man ranch roping is because I can throw it from right here. I think the Del Viento thrown properly is one of the prettiest loops on earth, but I throw the Del from right here, which is behind the drive line. So the calf needs to be pretty gentle for me to throw it. I can throw the forehand turnover literally using my horse as a block to block the calf's face in head and still catch this shot from over here. That's why it is so pivotal that me, Dad, and Abby have both shots, because we can just sit, keep the calf where we need it, and throw from here. So here it is. It's the same as that. It's the same angle if you're thinking about it in angles. It's gonna be the same angle as the forehand turnover head shot from over there. Okay, so we're gonna kick it over our left shoulder, way behind our head, almost uncomfortable. We're gonna float it up there and just go. Oh my goodness, that was terrible. The guys filming don't know nothing about roping really, so they don't know how painful a miss like that is. But if they did, y'all have heard something. Let's try again. So there we go. That's a little better. Not really. Let's throw it again. This needs to come all the way through, right? That was just kind of it had been slops. Let's try again. Here we go. Money. All right, so the way that we get this to happen, you want to get your turnover shot going, but the whole idea is that your angle of delivery is very important. You want your loop to hit the calf from back to front and from top to bottom. And what that does is that inertia from both angles shoots this tip, boom, way through, okay? That's the idea. You can throw this shot from all over the dummy. You can throw it from over here if you wanted to. I personally like it best, right? Golly. I personally like it best. The wind's not even blowing on that one, guys. That's just me stinking. I like it best from up there because it's doing two things, okay? Basically what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna pitch that thing up there. I'm gonna let it slide through my hand until it gets to its destination. Then I'm gonna kind of guide it in just a little bit. I'm just gonna give it a little extra whip right at the end to kind of force a little bit more slap in under the calf. Boom, right? And that sometimes in some like sticky dirt, or if you're a little off, that little extra whoop will save you getting your shot in there. So from there, let's go to over the hip. And you can do this one of two ways. So it's just like the scoop loop, but this is over the hip, so you want it to hit. Oh, so when that happens, this is important because this happens a lot. When that happens, when it hits that front leg, instead of going under, your loop was too big. So you can make the loop a little smaller. You want that Honda to hit in the same place as the other one. Hopefully it'll work. Right, same deal. Kind of what I'm doing here is I'm trying to float it in there to counteract the wind a little bit, but right, so the idea, try to get it to go in. That's better, a little better. On a bigger animal, that would have been a little more normal. It kind of flipped up over the hip, but for all extensive purposes and on a windy day, I'll take it. Same as the scoop on the other side. This is going to kind of be, I mean, really, if you can throw a forehand turnover, this is a good shot. I know we got another question. I'm gonna cover one more thing about this shot. Another thing you can do with this shot that kind of makes it a little easier that I've just recently been practicing is you can split your spoke right here. And, oh, not like that. You can split your spoke instead of letting go of that loop, and you don't have to pop your spoke at all really, because you'll have it split. But it takes a lot of practice to kind of float it over there and let it slide through your hand the whole way. On a forehand swing, for me, it's very weird feeling to do that. I'll try one more time. So you're gonna float it. That's it, that was it. So you don't slide your spoke near as much as like a turnover or anything, because it's real direct, but it's pretty easy to pop that tip through once you kind of get the hang of sliding that spoke. What you got, Seth?
All right, so Zach asked, does your angle of the loop change if you are behind the drive line?
For the turnover.
He didn't specify.
Okay, Zach, for the turnover? Type quickly.
It's gonna take a minute.
To get,
Delay, probably like
Okay. Huh? Just cover everything. Come on. Okay, so back to running shots. The angle's going to change. I'm sure he's talking about the forehand turnover, knowing Zach. Yeah. So, yes. Well, no, yes. Yes and no, Zach. So basically, the angle's going to be the same, but where, like the angle of the swing is the same, but the angle of your delivery changes a little bit. So more or less, it's not the angle of delivery. I guess it would be where you're aiming is a little different. So like right here, and I'll just put my rope down so I can think about it better. So, okay, so from right here, this spot, okay, I'm gonna aim right here. If I'm my rope, I want it to come in like this, right? And that's from right here. If I move a little further this way, I want it to be, instead of right here, I want it to be right here. Okay? Now it still has to hang the hip, but it's minute. It's very small changes. If I'm right here, I'm gonna want it to almost come in like this. More from the back than the top. Because what'll happen is if your Honda gets too far this way, you'll miss. So your Honda still has to end up like right here. But the tip of your loop needs to come in from a different angle. So almost you would throw the rope higher from here in the sky, right? And it would come from top to bottom and a little bit from back to front, okay? As you move around the dummy, it's gonna go less high and more from back here because you still need your Honda to end up in this zone. So what that kind of looks like is this. So if I throw from right here, right, I'm gonna throw it high, right? If I'm gonna throw it from back here, see my Honda? That's where your Honda needs to be. If I'm gonna throw it from back here, it's gonna be less height and just a little bit more from back to front. And it's freaking inches, Zach. It's little bitty changes. But that's the best way I know to describe it. The further you get around the dummy, the lower your shot's gonna be. Seth, you good? None? Okay. All right, so from there, what we just do? Oh, the over the hip. The over the hip is a fantastic shot for bigger animals. It does really good on like cows and bulls, big yearlings that'll stand. It's a really good shot for that. I have trouble on the little calves because it hits the front legs. It's really annoying. Okay, so we did the blocker, we did the over the hip. Okay, let's try, okay, this is probably my worst shot ever, so bear with me. And after the culo thing, this could be rough. So we're gonna do a onside scoop loop hip shot. I pray to Jesus I hit it first shot and we can be done with it. Because it's just, for whatever reason, it's hard for me to get my tip around to the front on foot. Hey, come on, Seth. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, so whole idea, you split the tail head. The tip of your rope shoots through. I have a really hard time getting the tip of my rope out in front. For whatever reason, with that shot, I struggle with it. Because I hit it first try, I'm gonna try again. But you can hit this thing on the move and it's like a work of art, and wow, man. Okay, well, I couldn't hit a culo, but I hit that. So that's it. That's the onside scoop loop. I can't believe that went that well. So nothing really special to it. You throw it just like the head shot. The biggest thing to get it to go through is the placement of the tip of that rope. And then the placement of the tip as well places the Honda, which throws your rope over the back of the calf. You good? Yeah. Okay, so moving right along to, I'm trying to think of all the shots. So let's do a dell. All right, so you can throw a dell from really anywhere. A really cool shot at like a Brandon is from behind, super difficult, but I'll try it. Especially, and this would be thrown moving. So you're really gonna wanna lead it out there, but that was terrible. So the whole idea is you're gonna start your rotation, and honestly, the reason I missed right there was sloppiness. I was not smooth. So we need to be smooth with our delivery. Once again, anytime you hear that zzz, your speed burner zipping up and down your rope, you're 10 out of 10 times being too fast. I'm trying to keep it low because the wind might catch it, but we'll try. We'll just let her fly this time and see how it goes. So here we'd start it. That, if you could hear that, that was perfect. My rope was not on my speed burner, which means I started my rotation, got it hooked in that Honda where I could manipulate it, and once it got to that point, I brought it right in. It's a work of art. It's a really amazing shot. So kind of the way that you start this thing is you're going to start knuckles down. You start your rotation here. I split my spoke with my pointer finger like this, right? And as you start that rotation, you want to throw it out past the calf and off the back side of the hip, right? You got to throw it past the calf. And then once it hits that spot in that Honda, which is about a 3/4 of a full rotation, you can catch it and manipulate it. You can do pretty much whatever you want to with it. I held that a little too long there, and I should have brought it back sooner, but when you're talking about it, it's kind of hard to do both. Here we go. Let's try again. So, perfect. Kind of the idea is if your loop rotates, if it rotates really slow, then you need to throw it really high. But if it rotates really fast, you can throw it really low. I'll try to throw a fast one here. For me, I do a little better higher. So if you get it to rotate fast, that's kind of it's the same exact thing, just different, because if it's rotating fast, you can catch your Honda faster, right? You can catch it in the air and manipulate it faster. And then if you throw it real slow like this, where it rotates slow, right? That was terrible. But you kind of get the idea. So if it rotates slow, throw it high. If it rotates fast, throw it lower. And you can throw that Dale from lots of cool places, but that's kind of where, at a Brandon, I'll try it trotting behind him. I've only caught it like twice. In a 3-man roping, I'm gonna be throwing it from right here, on a calf that's standing. So, anyway, it's a super fun shot. You could annihilate people in pig with that thing. Like, yeah, that is 53. Wow, that took 2 hours on the dot. So that's pretty much, other than, I'll tell you what, I'll cover one more shot, and it's called a back door. The back door, or a frisbee, is thrown like this. You can throw it on a calf coming down the fence. Right, we'll throw it from over here first. You can throw it, this calf would be coming behind me like this. It's a flat swing. You'd want them to get by you a little bit, like past the tailhead of your horse. You're gonna throw it out there kind of like a frisbee. And that's the way, in some of the videos I've seen it done, they throw it on a calf that kind of squirts in behind them, right? And is running by like that. The way, really, the biggest time I use it, or the best time I use it, is if I'm walking down a fence, swinging flat, and that calf runs down that fence next to me. You kind of pitch it out there like that, and I'll show the camera what I'm doing with my hand. So you're gonna swing a flat swing, right? like this. And then as it gets in this, over my left shoulder, I'm gonna roll it onto my thumb like this. And then here it is, I'm gonna roll it on my thumb and then pitch it. And as it gets on that thumb, you can kind of feel it like whirly-birding around your finger, and you just kind of let the momentum of your loop carry it, but you kind of push it into the air, and it'll just whoop, float right out there. That's another shot that we use quite a bit on calves. It's real good for calves that are like snaky and that are being just like being turds, and you can throw it on them and they won't see it coming. They'll think they kind of got by you. You know what I mean? Anyways, got any questions, Kyle? That's really the kind of the lowdown, guys. It's kind of the rundown for me. If you were to come to one of our clinics, we go through this and then troubleshoot all your shots. It's a lot of talking for 2 hours. I'm kind of out of breath. Anyways, if you got any more questions, just throw them in the chat real quick and we'll cover them. If you get to re-watching this video and you get stuck on something, just text me a video, call me, send us an email, and let's talk about it. I've troubleshooted hundreds of Del Vientos over the phone with the members. I talk to them all the time about the shots they're having trouble with, and video helps me tell you or troubleshoot what's going on. If you have other angles of these shots that you think I would think is cool, please send them to me because I'd love to watch them. We are so thankful that you chose to kind of tune in and watch this deal. It was kind of an experiment to see if it would be worth us doing a full clinic, kind of doing an invitational clinic, bringing guys in and then live streaming the whole deal for you guys to watch that can't come. We have followers all over the world that just can't really make it to a clinic. So we're just trying to get the information to you best we can. But we're so thankful you tuned in and watched, and I can't wait to hear your questions.
Yeah, Debbie Raska says, that was awesome. Thank you, Dalton. Brewster's Arsenal says, thank you, partner. Matt Roman says, great stuff. Gonna go practice. And the Jason's Hope says, thanks, guys. Huge help. Many exclamation points there.
Awesome. So Kyle just read me. Kyle's just reading me all the thanks, guys, and we're just absolutely humbled by your support and so thankful that you got something out of it. And we will continue to do our best to bring you the best up-to-date educational footage we can from our point of view. Once again, we're not the end-all be-all by any means. We just try to share what we've learned with you guys the best we can. So anyways, I am dead serious about calling me. Give me a shout, shoot me an email, whatever. Y'all all should have my number because I text you the link. So feel free to give us a shout. And I'm on vacation I'm in Alabama till next week, and then we got a clinic in Texas. If you're close to there, come see us. The information's on the website. But once I get back in the office, I can troubleshoot your videos, and you can call me with any questions or concerns you have. So once again, appreciate it, guys. Thanks so much.